Watchers in the Fourth Dimension.
Hello again. You must be having a ball.
Adric, I'm warning you! Get out of my way!
Conformity. There is no other freedom.
Hello and welcome back to Watchers in the Fourth Dimension. I'm Anthony.
I'm Diana.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Riley. And how can Earthlings have penetrated us?
This episode, we're digging further into the Fifth Doctor era with the dullest story since Meglos in 4 to Doomsday. But before we get into that, Diana's going to take a look at the mail. Over to you, Diana.
Thank you. So we are looking at the mail from the Tom Baker retrospective, and we didn't get a whole lot of comments, but some good ones. So over on Facebook, we had Nathan Laws that commented, and I'm going to truncate it a little bit because it is a couple of chapters.
Just a little bit.
He did make some good points that not everybody loves their first Doctor the best. Tom was his first Doctor, but not his favorite. His favorite's actually Pertwee, which is one of the last ones that he encountered. But he did emphasize the comment made by Julie that Tom is comparable to Troughton because they're both the sillier options, and that people who like that are obviously going to gravitate to Baker out of our current Doctors that we've seen because so much of Troughton is missing and everybody else is more serious, which I thought was a pretty solid point because I'm a silly Doctor kind of fan. And the spread of him across the world at the time definitely leads to at least the perception that the Fourth Doctor is the greatest Doctor. And then Ben Flay says that this is the only Who podcast they listen to. And they have so many questions. Julie, Harry, yes or no?
No, that is well established.
Just in case anyone was uncertain.
I knew that. This is a golden era about to undergo a complete refresh. And he is curious about our takes on the changing in the TARDIS prop, which I will have some this episode. And that Tom is also his favorite Doctor, although he never saw him on TV, only VHS tape. He believes his first one was Colin Baker, and that Colin is also a great marsh wiggle in Narnia. Is he? Is he? Have I missed that? Oh, no. Now, Rebecca commented, good. While you were doing season 18, I plowed through the last 3 classic Doctors. That's my kind of binge watch. 61 years of history in 6 months.
Good Lord. If we had the time to edit that quickly, we could probably watch it that quickly, but our lead time on making these is about 2 weeks an episode.
And I'd like to bring up, whereas to Ben Flay saying that we are the only podcast they listen to. That's what we demand of all our listeners. Complete, utter loyalty. Forsake all the other Doctor Who podcasts.
Yeah, we demand that you all bend the knee.
We are offering you 4 opinions here. How many more could you possibly want? And then Stu asked, are you doing K9 and Company next or going into Castrovalva? By the time this has come out, you'll know the answer. That's fun. Time is weird. Yes, time is weird.
Time travel.
Wibbly wobbly.
Considering I just finished editing K9 and Company yesterday. Now, over on Instagram, Austin D. Patterson said, bit of a personal note, but I started listening to you guys right after you started the Tom Baker era way back in 2022. Crazy to think you finally made it through the whole thing. Since then, I've graduated college, moved to New York, and had 3 failed relationships, all which you guys helped me through. Cheers to the end of this era, and cheers to the next one. Love you guys. Which I thought was so sweet.
Damn, Austin, I think since we started Tom, we only have 3 failed relationships between the 4 of us, and 2 of them were mine.
Oh, Anthony, it'll be okay.
Oh, it's definitely okay now.
Austin, I hope you're enjoying New York. When I lived there, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, fantastic city. And with that, that's been the mail. Back to you.
Thank you, Diana. And as a reminder to our listeners, we really do love getting your feedback, thoughts, comments, and questions. And we do try and read out as many of them as possible on the show. So please do get in touch. You can contact us through Facebook and Instagram at Watchers4D. And you can also email us at watchers4d@gmail.com. Additionally, we would absolutely love it if you subscribe to the podcast, if you're not doing so already, and if you dropped us a review or rating on your podcast platform of choice. Anyway, moving behind the scenes on the wretched story only known as 4 to Doomsday, this one kind of has a complicated history. The story originally intended to begin Peter Davison's tenure as the Fifth Doctor, both in the studio and on screen, was Project Zeta Sigma by John Flanagan and Andrew McCulloch, the scribes of Meglos. By early 1981, however, it became clear that their ambitious scripts were simply not achievable on a Doctor Who budget. Neither was Meglos, so I don't know what they're complaining about here. Anyway, former script editor Christopher H. Bidmead agreed to develop Castrovalva in the place of Project Zeta Sigma, but it wouldn't be ready in time for the start of the 19th recording block. So, producer John Nathan Turner decided to bring forward Davison's second adventure in the recording schedule, which he believed would give the new star a chance to settle into the role of the Doctor before the season premiere was recorded. The serial in question was one of the first stories that Bidmead had lined up for the Fifth Doctor prior to his departure from Doctor Who. And that's Bidmead's departure, not the Fifth Doctor's. That would be a very short tenure. Terence Dudley had directed, here we fucking go, Meglos for the programme's 18th season. And while the production office agreed that his approach to making Doctor Who was not what they were looking for, it was suggested that Dudley should instead develop ideas for the show. He initially proposed a murder mystery set in the 20s. This was not in line with what Bidmead was looking for. It was later revived later in season 19 as Black Orchid. Instead, at the end of August 1980, Dudley was commissioned to prepare a 4-part outline envisaged as a satire on bureaucracy and megalomania. By the time full scripts were requested just before Christmas, it was known as Day of Wrath. Sadly, Dudley was just as competent at writing Doctor Who as he was at directing it.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, I know. Dudley wrote quickly, and so when Project Zeta Sigma was cancelled, Day of Wrath, now retitled 4 to Doomsday, was available to replace it in the shooting schedule. Dudley's narrative was one of the last to see the involvement of executive producer Barry Letts, who was winding down his role on Doctor Who, and so he would not actually be credited for 4 to Doomsday. Probably best not to have his name associated with this one anyway. Meanwhile, work was ongoing to shape the Fifth Doctor. Davison was frustrated that he was given little indication of how to steer his portrayal beyond drawing a marked contrast with Baker's incarnation. However, a few weeks after his announcement as the Fifth Doctor, Davison appeared on the Pebble Mill at 1 talk show, when a fan suggested that his Doctor should be Tristan Farnan with bravery and intellect, referring to Davison's character on All Creatures Great and Small. Although Davison initially rejected this idea, it stuck with him, and he eventually decided to use it as the basis for his performance after all. Davison was also determined to occasionally incorporate moments of whimsy, despite JNT's insistence that jokiness in Doctor Who be minimised. As with season 18, Nathan Turner wanted the regular cast to wear distinctive costumes which would remain essentially the same from serial to serial. Not only would this save on wardrobe costs, but it was also seen as a way to increase Doctor Who's marketability. An early idea for the new Doctor would have seen him dressed in a morning suit with a collapsible topper. Subsequently, a polo outfit with jodhpurs was suggested. Davison liked the idea of a sports motif, but offered cricketing gear as an alternative, since this was a game that he played and enjoyed. And a photo of Davison in a charity cricket match had originally inspired JNT to consider him for the role of the Fifth Doctor, and so JNT naturally loved the idea. The job of creating the costume then fell to Colin Lavers, the costume designer for 4 to Doomsday. More on him in a minute. One requirement imposed by Nathan Turner was that the question mark shirt collars be retained. This was not something that Davison liked because he felt that it made the Doctor's garments look rather contrived. JNT also asked for something to adorn the Fifth Doctor's lapel and decided, out of nowhere, that a stick of celery would be appropriately quirky and unusual. Davison was absolutely baffled by this seemingly arbitrary decision, but Nathan Turner reassured him that an explanation would eventually appear on screen. Spoiler alert, it won't be until his very last story. Another task confronting JNT between seasons was to determine the future of the newly expanded lineup of companions. The original plan had been for Adric and Tegan to accompany the Fifth Doctor, but Nyssa was later added to the TARDIS crew after JNT grew fond of her portrayal in The Keeper of Traken. And around the start of March, Nathan Turner decided to retain Nyssa throughout the entirety of season 19. And this was after Davison had lobbied for her because he felt that of all the companions, she best suited his vision of the Doctor.
Okay.
Yeah. The director assigned to 4 to Doomsday was John Black, who had previously handled The Keeper of Traken. This would be his last Doctor Who serial, although he would also make K9 and Company, which was actually filmed after this. Joining his behind-the-scenes team, we have the only outing of Henry Foster as production manager. He had previously been a production assistant in season 17 for the amazing stories that were Destiny of the Daleks and the Horns of Nimon. As a production manager, he also worked on Blake 7 and EastEnders, and later pivoted into directing, in which capacity he worked on Brookside, Coronation Street, and Emmerdale, the latter of which he directed 218 episodes. So he kind of became a king of soaps. As designer, we have Tony Burrow returning to the show for a second time. He had previously handled season 18's The Keeper of Traken. As costumer, already mentioned, we have the return of Colin Lavers, who had previously worked on season 16's The Power of Kroll. And lastly, as composer, we have Roger Lim returning to the show for a second time, having also previously worked on, you guessed it, The Keeper of Traken. John Black got the gang back together. In front of the camera, Black and Nathan Turner cast Stratford Johns as Monarch. He had been considered for the role of the Third Doctor back in 1969. Johns was now eager to play characters who would offer a change from the popular police officer Charlie Barlow, whom he had played in, drumroll, Z-Cars,
Oh boy.
and all 3 of its spin-offs.
Wow.
Yes, one of which was called Barlow at Large, and he was literally the main character of it.
Nice.
Nathan Turner was now actively involved with the selection of guest performers and was keen to attract as many big names as possible to Doctor Who in order to generate publicity. Now, during filming, dear Adric actor Matthew Waterhouse, who we all know had endured a very difficult working relationship with Tom Baker, got off to a bad start with Peter Davison as well, after he took it upon himself to point out mistakes that he felt his new colleague was making.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
By the end of filming of the story, very few people involved were happy with 4 to Doomsday. Davison was aggravated by the many plot holes, while Waterhouse felt that it emasculated Adric.
Oh my God.
It did something to Adric.
Oh my God.
The final version of the story once again ran on Mondays and Tuesday nights in 2 consecutive weeks, starting on Monday, January the 18th, 1982, and wrapping up on January the 26th. And so this episode, the short summary is with me, so here we go. In 4 to Doomsday, the TARDIS crew land on a spaceship instead of Heathrow Terminal 3. Do I sense an ongoing plot point here? Here, an amphibious fascist dictator called Monarch wants to ransack Earth for its minerals and maybe also turn everyone into digital copies of themselves in android bodies, but mostly for the minerals to help him travel back in time to the beginning of the universe so that he can meet God, which he believes is himself. Meanwhile, Tegan throws many hissy fits, Adric tunes into the manosphere and embraces the Make Alzarius Great Again movement, and Nyssa is, well, kind of there-ish. The day is saved thanks to a well-aimed cricket ball and the Doctor using venom on Monarch. Jesus fucking Christ, that was nearly 2 hours of my life that I will never get back. So let's talk about this one, and I will give you my review right now. Over to you guys. Part 1.
Part 1.
That's honestly better than it could have been.
Yeah, I think I understood the episode after that.
You know, can you guys help me out? I can't quite figure this out, and I'm getting a little confused. So Tegan is upset. Why is that again? I don't think I've been told why she's all pissed off all the time. I don't think they've mentioned that.
Is it being late for dinner,
Anyway.
or is it...
Yeah, it's something about Heathrow Airport, right?
Do you have a date there?
I guess. I don't know. They
Plans? I don't
really
know.
should, like, I don't know. They really should have nailed that down more. They shouldn't have such a floating, like, plot hole like that.
The only positive thing, I wouldn't call it a positive, it's just an interesting fact, is they did mention the ant again. But not that the ant was dead, but that she was just shrunken. But also dead.
Mostly, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes they don't necessarily go back to previous plot points, especially with how these folks get onto the TARDIS other than Nyssa, because obviously the Master is problematic. But yeah, was like, yay, you mentioned the ant again. I was not expecting that. And that is about the only non-negative thing I have to say about Tegan.
Yeah, I'm in that boat too.
We were just starting to like Tegan.
I liked everybody until this episode.
Well, Adric then went bonkers.
He sure
what
did.
happened?
Yeah.
It was a complete 180, and it doesn't make any sense.
He turned into an incel.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I felt like they threw out the character development for both Tegan and Adric. It's like they took very base components of both characters and said, this is what we're going to go on, instead of the complexity. Like, Tegan's loud and whiny already, but she was very determined to do the next step. And this one, she didn't have any steps. She was like, I'm going to cry and push some buttons.
You say they threw out the character developments of Tegan and Adric. They just flat out threw out the character of Nyssa.
Yeah.
Wait, she was there?
Sometimes.
Kind of. Zonked out.
With Castrovalva, I mentioned that, man, Adric seems a lot more confident. Did he go through puberty during the off-season? No, I think his mood swings are insane there. I think he's going through puberty right now.
In the active stages.
I think he just started following Andrew Tate.
Oh, golly, you're not kidding.
No one was characterized very well at all.
Mm-mm.
And even if you were saying that they're down to their basics, like, Adric didn't even really do math.
No.
Why was he here if he wasn't even going to do math? And I don't understand. The doctor was fine. Actually, the doctor was the only one I could probably stand in the whole thing. But, buddy.
Yeah.
I think the problem here lies with, it seems like that the writer used the companions as a means to move the story along with no concern about what their character was. It's just, I don't care who Adric is. I don't care what we establish with him. We've got to figure out how to move this story along. So he's going to think that Monarch is the best thing since sliced bread.
All right, let's talk about the plot on this one, because it exists just.
Yeah, so they're trying to get Tegan back, and then the TARDIS lands them inside a spaceship, and then they go exploring, and there is a good effect. I think it was pretty good. It's 1981, right?
Yeah.
The floating orb panopticon thing was pretty nice.
Yes,
that was well
that
done.
one wasn't bad. We also get that panning shot of the spaceship from initially the side where it kind of presages Red Dwarf a little bit, and then you go under it in a kind of Star Wars homage, but this is nowhere near as exciting as Star Wars.
I don't particularly care for the from the bottom side, whatever you said it was. Basically, I was just like, oh, cool. It's a close-up of metal. Interesting.
And it's an ugly ship.
It
Yes.
really is.
So I think the problem here is this is 1982, right? That this went out. This is built like a Hartnell story. It starts with the Doctor failing to get his companion back to Earth, and they're trying to figure out exactly what's going on, and they're exploring the ship, and it takes far too long. And that worked in the context of TV in 63 through 66. In 1982, TV has moved on, and this is just boring.
Yeah. But I do want to talk about Monarch, enlightenment, and persuasion. What?
Okay.
What?
It's the three who rule again, except it's really the one who rules and his two lackeys.
It's something else. However, I will have to say, one, Tegan, beautiful drawing. I don't understand where that artistry comes from, but that was phenomenal. And I know I'm jumping a little bit, but enlightenment and persuasion come to life through Tegan's drawing. I loved their look. They looked amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh.
firstly, that double-breasted green jacket that Persuasion has. Yes, please, I want one. Secondly, enlightenment. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Hey, mommy.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I'd like some flesh time with her.
No. Okay, hold on. I feel like we have to establish off the top. I cannot stand that word.
Flesh time.
Oh, stop. Oh, I hate it.
I was thinking, we haven't done this in a long time. We never do it, but we have discussed if we were ever to print T-shirts for the podcast, we need to print one that just says flesh time. And in our fonts, just flesh time.
Stop saying it.
And it has to be a weird fleshy color because
Oh, no. Guys, stop. You're gonna make Diana rich.
Love it. Love it. And okay, I'll change the subject. Speaking of persuasion, I refuse to believe that anyone else other than Bill Hader played that part.
The whole time I was like, this is Bill Hader.
This spaceship has everything. Athenians, Aborigines, Chinese, random dancing, potential genocide.
Hey, I took value, and at least if they're going to go with these like horrific racist motifs, that the people are represented by people of color. They're not white actors.
Yeah.
At least, yes.
That's a change from the first Doctor era.
It's a change from the fourth Doctor era. Come on.
Yes. And, oh man, first off, Bygone, like really, we have to use that as the name.
Mm-hmm.
Let bygones be bygones, Julie.
But he was wonderful. Also, actually, the other time that Tegan is not an issue is when she's understanding the Australian Aborigines.
Yeah,
that was great.
Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, ooh, I was not expecting that.
Yeah, but what are the chances that Tegan has studied any language other than English?
Well, she was from Australia, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But how many Australians have you met, Julie? Because not a single damn one of them that I know speaks Aborigine.
I'm half Mexican, and my Spanish is sparse at best.
You don't know Tegan.
Look, we don't, but we do know Tegan, and you know she does not have the patience
Yeah.
to learn another language.
If she
That's not
was
happening.
taught as a child, then she might have had patience.
Well, sure, but then she would have probably been taught French. I absolutely refuse to believe that this little white girl out of Australia knows any Aboriginal language. None. No, not at all.
Yeah. You and I are on the same page, Diana. I mean, overall, this is not good. I think we're already in part 2.
Whoa. Before we move on to part 2, I would like to bring up the first 2. It's almost like the Stations of the Cross for me. This serial has something really good going for it. It shits on Adric a lot. And I'm not talking about just him behaving like an ass. I'm just saying other characters doing it to him. So in part 1, there are 2, and I would like to point them out now. The first is the Doctor not giving Adric the key to the TARDIS, giving it to Tegan, and then him getting all pissy about it. 2 is Monarch calling Adric the boy who got his sums wrong. And I'm telling you right now, that is what I'm calling him for the remainder of his time on the show.
All right, let's talk about part 2, because I really don't want to talk about this longer than we have to. So,
Well, part 2 had the most filler, I believe, so we really don't need to stick around on part 2 that long.
I'm going to read you verbatim some of my notes. And these are bullet pointed, okay? So bear with me. And then Tegan freaks out. Random dance scene. God, this is fucking dull. I've honestly stopped caring. Something, Tegan gets upset. More dancing.
I have 2, and we already covered my comment about the FT, since we won't say it out loud anymore.
The Financial Times?
Yes. The second was when Nyssa and Adric are moseying about, looking into things, and Nyssa touches one of them, and he pushes her away, and Adric says, "Don't do that to her. She touched him." What?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? It just seems so silly. It's like, why would that be the reaction? The reaction should be, in writing here, to be accurate for both characters, is, well, that's odd. He pushed Nyssa off, but didn't say anything. He just kept on working. What is this person's deal? Doesn't seem to be reacting to us. It's just, once again, characterization, not the strong suit in this series.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I know at one point, I think the Monarch called them children, and they really were, well, Adric was really acting like a child, when they're really not children. Yes, they're teenagers, but that's not children. But it was bad.
That was one of the things that I noted throughout this whole story, was how much that they were very driven in talking about the Doctor and Tegan as adults and Nyssa and Adric as children.
Mm-hmm.
When in my brain, Nissa's the adult in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Tegan is not the adult. What is she, 18? I understand that's a legal adult. She is an infant child, and so is Adric, especially in this episode. You know, Nissa's the only one that's making logical decisions.
I don't love the word, but it's the only word I can use to describe her. Tegan spends this entire story just getting more and more hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the only word I can use to describe her because that's what she does. By the time she's in the TARDIS, flipping out in, I don't know what that is, parts 3 and 4, I don't really care.
That scene.
It's like, come on, guys, you can do better than this. This is not enjoyable to watch. So we end part 2 with the discovery that Bygone is an android. The android effects aren't nearly as good as the android invasion, I don't know what that was, 5-6 years earlier.
Uh-huh.
And that's
Agreed.
that cliffhanger. And we start part 3 with Tegan making an absurd judgment, saying the fact that Bygone being an android is wicked and evil. She's right, but she doesn't yet have the information to make that judgment, so she's just being unnecessarily judgmental here.
And it's not like that he could help it anyway, so she's not really right. Like, he can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
You know, he just is what he is. You know, he's still a life form.
Right.
Yeah.
I like how the special effects there, that those robot insides are probably just the guts from like a Commodore 64 and a shortwave radio or something.
Oh, that's 100% what they are.
That was pretty good. It was kind of flimsy, though. I'm like, maybe have like a little bit better skin covering it if you're wanting it to keep the shape of a human.
Again, they did so much better 5 or 6 years earlier with the android invasion.
That chest flap made me feel about the way the word makes me feel.
It was the head for me. It was like the projection of the face. And when he lifted it up, you didn't see the face move.
Yeah.
Ooh. Again, I just don't get how they could do it so much better a few years earlier. And then here it's just so absurdly bad.
I do have to say, though, the Monarch has really excellent lines and honestly is the most charismatic person of this whole thing. Also, like, is channeling Stephen Fry for me in some of it, but...
Oh yeah, as fascist dictator goes, he is very affable.
Yes.
He almost comes across as friendly.
But I don't understand how Adric was, like, bought into it so easily. It made no sense. I was like, at what point did he make this decision that this was an okay guy? I couldn't quite figure out what that step was.
Yeah, I thought he was doing what he did in the Master's Sex Dungeon, which was like, you know, leaning into it a little bit because he likes to be punished. And then, you know, coming around for the Doctor. But when he even fought the Doctor on it, I was like, the writer did not watch Doctor Who before this.
What's crazy is the writer has fucking directed Doctor Who before.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, on a goddamn bike.
Well, I mean, speaking of that scene, I thought the scene between Monarch talking to Adric was, to me, the scene I enjoyed the most, even though it was not in character for Adric. What I enjoyed the most about it is the actor who plays Monarch, Stratford Johns, the way that he speaks to Adric. It's like an adult encouraging a child in a slight patronizing tone. And I just thought it was an excellent performance there. It really was well done, in which he just kept feeding him and leading him. And it was just really, that's, to me, was the highlight and a bunch of lowlights.
Yeah, he was the best part of the episode. I'm actually really pleased to find out that he had a really successful acting career because he was fabulous.
Okay, I don't necessarily have a point to make about the Doctor, but we haven't really talked about him.
No, he's very bland.
It's a good point. Yo, that's a very good point.
I'm just going through, I'm like, we're talking about the companions, we're talking about the villains, and we're not talking about the Doctor.
That's not much to talk about.
I would argue, it's because the character right now, if you were asked what makes the Fifth Doctor differentiates him from others, personality-wise, could you really do it?
No.
I don't know if I could. No. I mean, that's something that should have been at least halfway resolved in his introductory episode.
Well, I can tell you what the difference is, actually, Riley. The others have personalities.
Oh,
okay.
man.
Okay, fine. That was obvious. Thank you.
I do find it interesting that he's basing him kind of off the All Creatures Great and Small character, because I don't know how many people are actually going to be familiar with that series in totality, because it is a niche interest. But I consumed those books when I was a kid like no other. I read them all. So it is interesting to know that he's basing that off the character from that book.
I'm not familiar with those books, but is that a cookbook?
No, it is the pastoral stories of a farmside veterinarian in England.
Oh, okay.
And so knowing that, like, I kind of get that kind of energy, knowing that now. But that's not the best basis for a vibrant character.
Completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Part 3 is also the one part where Nyssa actually has a moment of triumph. And that's when Adric is running his mouth to Monarch about Time Lords, Rassilon, Artron Energy, and I'm just thinking, Brozef, what are you doing? And Nyssa turns around and goes, why don't you shut up? Like, yes, queen.
Yeah, and then she gets hypnotized because, you know, my favorite, hypnotism.
I was going to raise the same point. I'm like, Julia must have really enjoyed that part. But by that comment you made, Anthony, you've now given me the 5 points of Adric getting shit on. I had forgotten that one, so thank you. That was really nice.
You're welcome.
May we all be Nissas.
In a world of Adrics.
I was thinking the exact same thing, Riley. Oh, boy.
It's not that hard to do, though, is it?
Right. Can we kind of talked about it, and Anthony brought it up a little bit in the summary, but I wanted to point out one specific element of our general plot, and that is the use of frog poison and the fact that before Persuasion and Calvin Klein's Obsession, or whatever they're called, are turned into attractive human beings, they are supposed to resemble frogs, I guess, because their skin. I felt like that was, I don't know, stupid. Honestly, it's just, did they really want to make a connection there between that? Like, they kind of look like frogs. That's why they're using frog poison. What?
The comparison for me felt, which is still very weak, I'll throw that out there at the beginning, is because this toxin is supposed to be the most toxic in the universe. What they used, and even visually, what they used was Amazonian tree frogs, which do have the most toxic poison on Earth. And so it is the most poisonous poison you can get in a real sense. But when that was their connection, I was like, but you don't even look like the cute Amazon tree frogs. Give me some color. They're red and vibrant and beautiful.
Oh my God. They could have been played by sock puppets that look like frogs, like Kermit or something.
We really could have some fun with that.
That would have been amazing.
No significant spoilers, but we are going to get some sock puppets in season 22, and it's going to be fucking glorious.
Do they have googly eyes, Anthony?
Not that I remember, but I could be wrong. It's been a minute.
Okay.
Are there any really catchy songs?
Sadly not.
And if you know, you know.
Well, one quote I want to raise on this. Monarch at one point says, "My patience is not inexhaustible." Yeah, mine neither, bro. Mine neither. And this story was testing it.
Yeah.
Yep. I have a few fun things in part 4 if we're almost ready for part 4.
Well, before we get to that, can we, I believe it's part 3, we need to discuss the Tegan and the TARDIS scene.
Do we actually, though?
Yeah, actually, because I will quickly say that I have often complained about, and look at me, the complainer complaining about a complainer. I will refreshen it. I'm not complaining. It's a criticism. I had criticized Tegan for her complaining all the time. But I would like to get everyone's opinion on this. One, yes, maybe Janet Fielding was asked to do it in that manner, and it doesn't seem like it's consistent with the tone or with the character. It just, as Anthony said, for lack of a better term, seemed hysterical. Did you feel like the acting was over the top there? The performance was over the top? That's what concerned me. I was like, oh, God.
Yes and no. The problem that I had was that it was just, let's just go back and show 10 seconds of Tegan. And hey, let's go back and show 10 seconds of Tegan for no real reason other than to just show the hysterics. And I think that made it worse. I think if they had made it one scene and it showed her doing that, that would have been fine. But because it kept going back and going back and going back, it was a drawn-out process that was unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I would even say, to your point, Riley, whether it was overacted, like, yes, obviously, no question. But I would like to know whether to know who to place that blame fully on is how long that recording session was.
Yeah.
You know, was that 4 hours of them making her cry and stomp on books and, whinge and moan and cry and cry and cry and cry and cry for 4 hours, because then, you get the stuff at the end and it's crazy because she's been doing this for too long. So I would like to know how many takes, how much they were actually doing this, because I'm sure she was as exhausted by it as anybody else, because she can't have been happy with that.
The other thing I'm going to wait on a little bit is to see how she is in the next story. And part of the reason is I don't think this is the case because they cannot be this smart right now. And if there's some through line in which this was like the breaking point for Tegan, and then maybe perhaps next story she's more accepting of being on the TARDIS as opposed to trying to get back home. I don't think that they're smart enough to do that right now, but I will hold out one more story and see what happens. If she goes back into hysterics, then it's absolutely the worst thing.
Agreed.
Part 4?
Yeah, part 4.
Yeah, so we end this one with, because of everything they're doing, Persuasion orders the Doctor's death, and Adric finally seems to see through everything.
And guess what? We have the best recap ever.
Because it's short.
It was so short and beautiful and to the point, and I was so happy.
And Nyssa saves the day with the Sonic. Thank God for Nyssa getting one of her few things to do this story.
The only other really fun thing other than the recap that was for me. So in case some of you aren't aware, I tend to watch Doctor Who with subtitles, and that stemmed from the Cybermen in the Second Doctor era because I could never understand what they said. So when we had I'll call it Spartan fighting since they're Greeks, a lot of times I just got little things that said men grunting. And
I do take a little offense, Julie, because these are Athenians and they are very different.
I'm sorry. I don't know all of my different Greek city-states, all that kind of stuff. I apologize. Sorry, Athenians.
Must do better.
Although, to be fair, I know some actually had the armor. Some of the guys who were grunting only were wearing, like, simple toga shirt things. So it's really hard to tell what group they were a part of.
Well, I took umbrage with the fact that the Athenian showcase would be fighting when it should be oratory skills.
Yes.
At first, I thought that's what they were going to do, because I was like, ooh, Bygone, he's going to just start orbit. No, that's not what we got. I will say, they panned to Enlightenment's face during the fight, and I was like, same girl, same. All right, I'm done.
Part 4, this is where I have the actual note of Monarch really is such a pleasant fascist. He is. As I said, he's very affable.
He's very Elon Musk with people skills.
I think he has better people skills than Elon Musk.
That's what I say, with people skills. He's took a publicity course.
Publicity course. Oh, no.
Oh, boy. Some of the dialogue in here is terrible. Like, I wouldn't dream of interfering with your monopticons. Make it stop.
Well, we're almost done, I promise.
Yeah.
Please record this as the story that broke Anthony.
We'll put it on your gravestone. It'll be fine.
And at least all the dialogue drops when they go out into the airlock.
Also true.
Okay, before we get to the airlock, I'm just going to say Nyssa's still not really doing anything. And she's now held hostage because we had to do that, because I continuously love to just cast off to the side the best companion. Cool. I love it. Not. Also, did I miss something? Speaking of the airlock, when did the Doctor figure out that the TARDIS was outside? I missed that.
I think he had noticed it when he was walking back from Monarch's chambers and just happened to see it out the window, honestly. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I think that's it.
I can take my time getting that. No one gives a shit about Tegan.
I guess I took a drink of water and missed it. I don't know what happened.
I mean, you could have fallen asleep. That's also a valid excuse.
Yeah. Tegan out there by herself, George Jetsoning the TARDIS. I don't understand how this crazy thing works.
And only at that point does she go, no, I should leave well enough alone. I'm going to calm down now.
Oh, good Lord.
She needs a drink. Just give her a drink, some sort of sedative, something.
A very stiff gin and tonic. Yeah.
Right. Since we kind of been popping around here in part 4, let's talk about the Doctor, like those YouTube bait videos. Watch, Doctor verbally destroys Adric.
Yeah.
That was quite something. I did not expect him to come down so hard, because I'm always used to, in a situation like that, with the Doctor and many of the Doctor's incarnations, is to do like a gentle come down moment. You're being foolish. That's not used to him just calling him a young idiot. Is in the way he does it, just the tone is so harsh. It was quite enjoyable. I only rewound it a few times to watch it over.
Riley made a YouTube supercut. 30 minutes of that on repeat.
Officially, the Fifth Doctor's my favorite classic Doctor now.
Oh, no. I mean,
okay, I'll buy back up.
I don't blame you there, because I did the same thing. It was fabulous. I love it when the Doctor turns into a little bitch and just is straight to the point. And I love the rude, straight to the point Doctor as much as I love a silly Doctor. And so that was actually a moment where I was like, okay, I get you. I like you.
And he does it with Tegan, too. When he says, you're going to spoil my attention or my focus.
Yeah, he's grumpy.
Mm-hmm.
So him calling Adric an idiot, I think, is the through line from Harry. He called him imbecile. I don't think we've had him call a companion a word for stupid that begins with I since Harry. So Julie, you're welcome. We found something Harry and Adric have in common.
Well, it's not like anyone thought I was going to be in love with Adric, so there's at least that. I still haven't found my post-Benton fan crush. Well, maybe Leela, but, you know.
I'm a little worried you never will at this point, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've hit the majority of the plot points here.
Well, we have to talk about our climactic ending, the fight in the hatch, or...
Yeah, the cricket ball spacewalk.
Oh, yeah. Before we get to that, there's one, Adric looks hilarious in his little spacesuit and helmet. 2, I didn't expect so much physicality in that ending, an actual physical tussle with Persuasion. And I do like, after they ripped out the chip or the board, how Persuasion just freezes in place like he's in the middle of a dance move. That was really enjoyable.
And then Adric was doing something to Enlightenment that I'm not entirely sure I'm okay with.
Yeah, I was jealous, I know.
And then, yes, we get the cricket ball because, I mean, yes, it makes sense because momentum and all that jazz, but really, the cricket ball? But he is wearing a cricket outfit. I don't know. It's fine. Everything is fine.
Yeah.
All right, let's just...
Well, one more thing.
No,
One more thing, I'm sorry.
Please.
Because when the Fifth Doctor comes back, he mentions that he can put himself in a kind of trance or deep slumber, and that is something that we haven't seen since Baker did it. And I just wanted to point out we weren't really happy when they did it back then, and not happy to see it come back either.
Yeah, and at least this time there's now precedent for it.
Right. And then we throw frog venom on Monarch, make him shrink, and since the programming gets all the cultures to come together and dance all at the same time with music of all sorts playing. I was wondering, when everyone got into the TARDIS and left, do you think that ship is just still dancing and the music's still going on for like centuries?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, they're not going to another planet. They're just going to party. I'm sure if they weren't machines, they would be drinking, but I guess there's no need for that.
They can just program themselves to be drunk. All right, so they get saved, but the story's still shit.
Yep.
Doctor goes to take them to Heathrow, and then Nyssa passes out. We have a cliffhanger into the next story. I would say for the first time in forever, but we literally have had that for multiple stories now. Is there anything else, or can we finally wrap up? Can we make it stop, please?
Yeah.
Can I think of one more thing to say? Hold on.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I
good.
release you.
All right. Camp count. Anything?
No, I don't think so.
I think a point for that fabulous green jacket.
All right.
Okay,
Sure.
1 point.
I'll explain later. I didn't catch any.
No.
And still no jelly babies.
No.
All right. Let's go ahead and rate it. Riley, you get to go first this time.
Okay. Tegan puts Adric in his place. tosses him to the ground and knocks him out. We didn't even talk about that. I'm bringing it up now.
This is now a 10 out of 10 for Riley because of the Adric abuse.
Nyssa tells Adric to shut up. The doctor calls Adric a young idiot. That's all that happened, in my opinion, the entire story. 10 out of 10. Easy. All right. All joking aside, I came into this not as harsh as everyone else because I felt like Castrovalva was so constrained by it having to do all the heavy lifting of establishing everything that I felt like this was their opportunity to grow, and I felt like they were doing that. But then, as everyone has rightfully pointed out, it wasn't more of a growth in a good way. It was more kind of a cancer in that characters were expanding the wrong way, not the way they were established, not the way that they were. And so it's made me completely reevaluate. I honestly was coming in here saying, hey, it's wacky. It's the first two parts are lagging, but it's kind of silly and weird. And okay, the Adric stuff does get some points in my book. I was going to give it a 5, but after talking about it, realizing how weak and nonsensical and premise was, and how badly the characterization was, I'm coming in much lower. And I will say this, I will have patience going forward. I'm just getting very nervous now. It's, in my opinion, companions that I don't feel very established with, a new doctor that I also have not felt established with. I need something to carry me through. I'm getting very scared that I might be going down a really bad path with the show, and I really wanted to turn around. You know, they say you got to learn to walk before you can run. I hope that's what's happening. They're getting all this out of their system. So I'm going to give this 3, per the doctor, Adric is a young idiot, out of 10.
All right, Diana, you're next.
Ah, man. So I did not like the thing I wrote after the final episode closed was honestly, what the fuck just happened? I'm taking off a point for every time I wrote in my notes, shut up, Adric, or shut up, Tegan, which means already we're down to a 1. And I'll give 1 extra point because I actually really liked the actor who played Monarch. He was fabulous and did a fantastic job. And so I'm rounding out at a 2 this week because I was lost the whole time and I hated Adric and Tegan. The end.
2 of what?
Oh, right. 2 out of 10 chances I'll ever watch this shit again.
I'm actually surprised no one's come up with that metric before.
So on that note, I'm next, and I haven't watched this story in, I don't know, 13 years, and there's probably a good reason for that. I think it might have only been the second time I've ever watched it, and I will sum up my review in 3 words. Thanks. I hated it. 4 words, technically. 1 fascist toad out of 10. Julie, last but not least.
Oh boy. I think I might be a little bit on the Riley side, although not as generous in the fact that I don't think I quite hated it as much, but I went in willing to hate it. So it's not like it took a lot of effort for you guys to make me do so. I'm not going to go into much further. So I will just go ahead and say, and I apologize, Diana, 2.5 years in flesh time out of 10.
Oh, no.
Sorry, no, take mine down to 1. They said that word too many times. I forgot about that.
Well, with Diana's adjustment, that brings our story average down to 1.88.
Whoa.
Which is the worst story since...
Good God.
The Space Pirates.
Holy... This is not as bad as Space Pirates, in my opinion.
In fact, it's officially the second worst story of all time based on our arbitrary ratings after the Space Pirates. So congratulations, Terrence Dudley and John Black, you absolute fuckwits. All right, well, now that we've got that turgid piece of shit out the way, we've reached the end of the episode. We'll be back next time with a story that fandom holds in much better regard with Kinder. Now, of course, just because fandom holds it in better regard doesn't mean we will. We'll see how we come out with that one. But in the meantime, thank you so very much for listening to our Hate Fest this episode. And please, even after listening to this, try to have a good one. You You have been listening to Watchers in the Fourth Dimension with Diana Burney, Riley Schreck, Julie Philippak, and myself, Anthony Williams. This episode, Exasperated Sigh, was recorded on Wednesday the 19th of March 2025. If this is your first time listening into the show, all of our previous episodes are available wherever you like to get your podcasts. You can interact with us on Facebook and Instagram at Watchers4D, and you can also email us at watchers4d@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, please do subscribe and consider leaving us a review or rating on your favourite podcasting app. All of those things really do help the show. And always remember, we thought that this story was the worst one since the Space Pirates. You're welcome.